Welcome to Soltron. This is the video review for the LDCX City Guard. I guess he's like a Jamaican bus. I think it's a Chinese bus, but it's got Jamaican colors. It doesn't really have paperwork or a name, so I don't know. Here's a size comparison with Transformers and the LDCX Super Train robots. I think he has the most in common with Golden Phoenix here because they both have like shoulder cannons. They have kind of a futuristic look, but I really do prefer the look of this robot. So let's take a look at his head sculpt here. At first I thought this black part was just all one visor, but he does have some little red eyes in there. And he's got a clear red head, so yeah, you can get some light piping out of that. So that looks pretty good with the flashlight. So there you go, you can see that pretty clearly. And then his little scuba mask is also clear red plastic, which is pretty cool. I really like the translucent plastic. And then he's got that on the shoulders here as well. So kind of an interesting head sculpt. It's a little bit not as cool as if it was just a black visor though. So overall this robot looks okay. The colors really pop out. I really like the red, yellow, and green. I think they complement each other pretty well. But he's fairly generic looking. There's not a lot going on to him. He does kind of get into that KO robot territory. He's got a little bit of a style, but personally I don't really like the way he looks. I would rate this robot mode as kind of a 7. It's just not that interesting to me. The feet are kind of reptilian, so I guess he's kind of a reptile, maybe. I just don't know. It's hard to tell what they were going with for this guy. Maybe he's like a chameleon, maybe. But I do appreciate these shoulder cannons. That's pretty cool. And you can see this side is hollow though, so that's not so good. And then for articulation, he does not have neck articulation. It looks... there is like some give, but I don't think it's supposed to rotate. Maybe if you unscrewed the chest and went in there, you could actually enable his head to turn, but it doesn't look like it's supposed to. And then he does have rotating shoulders here, and they are going to pop off the shoulder cannons. So a little bit clumsy engineering on their part, but you can kind of rotate without popping them off. And then you've got a fair amount of outside rotation, but there's this little extra kibble on the arms which doesn't give you a full outward. And then, surprise, surprise, he does have bicep swivel, so that's really nice. And that bicep does go all the way around, and it's on a soft ratchet, so that's pretty good. And then he does have about 90 degrees on the elbow there, on a nice clicky ratchet. And then another little surprise, he actually does have wrist articulation. This guy's was supposed to come with a sword, but mine didn't. It was kind of a shipping accident. I'm sure that's going to be replaced in my next order, but yeah, normally you'd have a little sword to hold. And then he's also got a waist joint, so that's pretty good too. And then forward kick on the leg, so thigh joint. And then a fair amount of outward, but this is going to get in the way. And then the backward is hindered kind of by this wheel and by this back here. And then he does have almost 90 degrees on the knee here. It's maybe 70. And then he does have ankle rocker, which doesn't help too much considering you can get a giant A pose. He definitely can't tilt his ankles that much. So, not bad for articulation, a big step up compared to the Super Train robots, who also had no head articulation. They do have like kind of a fake bicep swivel that doesn't really count, and then an outward. But then they don't have any articulation down here. Like you can one click the leg out, but that's it. And then they do have knees, but they're pretty pointless because there's back kibble. So, and then no waist articulation on these old robots. So big improvement in the articulation department, so that's pretty nice to see. And then with the shoulder cannons, unfortunately, there are no handles on this cannon, so he can't really hold it in his hands, which would be a cool look, or if it could clip on to his arm panels, that would be pretty cool, but there's just no way to do that. They do have these little clips, but that's mostly for them to clip together for bus mode. So yeah, pretty basic kind of robot. Plastic feels pretty good. I would definitely rate this as like an 8, maybe like a Transformers Studio Series quality. The plastic can be a little bit thin, and I think this plastic is not going to flex. So this could definitely just brittly break. So you have to be pretty mindful of where everything is so you're not breaking parts of him off. So yeah, that's about all there is to say for his robot mode. And then he's got this huge chunk. There is parts forming involved in this guy, unfortunately. So he does have this huge chunk in the back, which becomes like his jet pack. And then you just open that up and you can fold these thrusters in. And then you get that ready for transformation. That's obviously going to be the back of the bus. So that whole thing clips onto his back. But otherwise, he doesn't have any parts forming, so that's pretty good, minus the weapons. And then he does have a spring-loaded head gimmick. So when you're transforming him, when you bring the waist into place, that will pop up his head. So that's cool that they got that gimmick in. Still would have rather had a turning neck, but it's a cool gimmick. So to transform him, you do rotate his waist all the way around. You do have to transform him in a very particular order, which is kind of annoying. If you forget a step, you're going to have to untransform everything. And then this panel goes up and hides the head here. And then this panel you need to get done now, because after you do the arms will block this and you won't be able to get this in place. So I found that out the hard way. And then you can kind of get the legs ready too. So you point the toes and get the heel spurs in there, and then you can just rotate these. And actually the feet are going to stay pointing up, straight up like that. So then you got pretty much the whole side of a bus, and then you can just rotate the waist here. And actually, it's probably best to keep that out of the way. So a lot of these panels kind of line up. He's going to be very panel looking. So you're going to, here's a panel right here. You're going to flip out this whole thing, and it's held in with a clip there. And then you're going to rotate this up, and that's going to line the arm up here when you rotate it. And then you rotate the bicep swivel and rotate this down into place. And you're going to get this mostly into position. This is going to be one of the last steps, so you're going to leave that like that. And then you can rotate up the whole waist, and this is going to tab in to the little leg panel here. So you got this going on. So you got most of the bus pretty much transformed. Okay, and now you're going to lower the arms. So these clips are going to clip into the leg panels here, and that's going to clean that panel up. And then finally, for the last two bits, there's some parts forming. So you're going to take the shoulder cannons, and you're just going to fold in the gun nozzles, or the gun barrels, and then you're going to clip these two together, and this is going to become the roof of the bus. And then you have the rear of the bus here, and it's got these indents for the robot toes. So that's just going to use this clip here, and that's going to clip into the back, and then you get a couple little tabs to hold that in place very nicely. So everything's nicely held into place. And then finally, this is where the sword weapon would go. So once you compact it, it goes into this hollow space right here. So nice weapon storage. Unfortunately, I don't have that. And then these clips are going to clip in here. And then finally, it's going to peg in here. And then just clean up the little panels the best you can. And there you go. Here's the bus mode. Looks pretty good, especially from the front. I really like this translucent black plastic. You can see the mechanical effects in there. The sides, not looking very good. It's pretty plain looking. And the finish is kind of matte. I think this would have been better in a gloss plastic, so it shines better. It's kind of glossy back here, but it's more of maybe a satin. It's very glossy, this top part, but all this feels very matte. It's probably the paint. So it's a pretty good looking bust. It's very convincing. This is kind of a bare bones robot. I would say it's okay to transform. It's maybe like a 6. The panels are definitely not that much fun to transform, and you definitely have to do it in a certain order, otherwise you're going to have a really hard time. So I don't know that this would be really good for kids per se, like a young kid. But here he is with a car, so I think that's pretty great scale right there. And then with the LDCX Super Train robots, it doesn't really scale with the train at all. I think the train should be the same size about, so it doesn't really work for that. So it's interesting to see this company try something new. And they also made a series of airplane robots too. So I'm going to get maybe 1 or 2 of those as well. But if you're into this robot, you can get it at Sir Toys. I'll leave a link in the description. And I'll see you next time.